Okay, so when you think about, like, somebody who dedicates their whole life to spreading, like, a message of hope across different cultures, who comes to mind? Do you picture, like, some bold guy, like, venturing into uncharted territories? I think a lot of us do.
Right. Yeah.
But what if I told you that a really underestimated force in this whole story has actually been women? What do you think about that?
That's exactly what we're diving into today. The rich and often surprising history of women in missionary work. And our guidebook for this journey, is Women in Mission by Marguerite Kraft and Meg Crossman. It's a book that really shines a light on the remarkable things these women have done.
For sure. And for you listening, our mission today is super clear. We're going to unpack the key insights from this book, right?
Yeah.
Uncover their motivations, the massive impact they had, and just the sheer size of women's involvement in missions all throughout history. We're talking about gaining a much deeper understanding of this global movement that is still going on today. So let's jump right in, starting at the very beginning.
Okay. So the book takes us all the way back to the book of Acts, where we meet Priscilla. And what's really cool is how her role is presented like it's just normal, like it's no big deal. She's working alongside her husband, Aquila. They're doing cross-cultural ministry. They've got a house church going. She even instructs Apollos.
Wow.
Right. Apollos, who is this well-respected speaker. He's like going around preaching, and she is helping him understand the way of God even better.
I mean, isn't it kind of interesting, too, how often Priscilla's name is actually listed first?
It is, yeah.
Some scholars even think that she might have been, like, more prominent and more helpful to the church than even her husband. So what does that tell us about, the early church and, like, women's roles back then? It seems like a lot of our assumptions could be challenged by this.
I know, it's a great question. It really suggests that they had this shared leadership thing going on and that her spiritual gifts were recognized, maybe more so than we tend to think, looking back from our perspective. And these early examples, they're not alone. We see this pattern continuing with a ton of women making a real difference. Take Lucia of Sicily, for example. Around the year 300 AD, she's doing all this Christian charitable work. Like, she was super dedicated to helping the poor, and she even faced martyrdom for it, sticking to her beliefs.
Right. Wow.
Then you've got Melania of Rome, who came from a really wealthy family, and she used her resources to help those in need. And she even started monasteries and churches in Africa and in Jerusalem.
Well, her missionary journeys actually started because she had to flee Rome as a refugee?
Exactly.
That's wild. Makes you think, how often did something like that happen? Circumstances just pushing women into these roles.
It's a great point. It shows that mission work isn't always this planned out thing. It can come from the most unexpected places, fueled by a strong personal conviction. And get this, we even read about women who were taken hostage in Northern Europe, and they ended up evangelizing their captors.
No.
Sometimes even through marriage. It's amazing. The book also talks about Clare. She lived in the 13th century, and she was a reformer. She founded the Franciscan Order of Barefoot Nuns. Now, even within the structure of the convent, they were cloistered, but the way things worked back then still allowed women to spread the gospel and make a big impact.
And we can't forget about all the Catholic nuns. They were really essential in setting up so many important institutions. I mean, we're talking churches, hospitals, schools, orphanages. They were literally building a foundation of faith through taking care of people and serving their communities.
Totally. Now, building on these early examples, it's important to see how the Protestant Reformation changed things. I mean, it really altered the landscape for women in the church, and ultimately in mission work, too. The Protestant Reformation was a huge movement in Europe in the 16th century, and it really shifted ideas about church structure and how people fit in.
So for women who felt a call to ministry that went beyond, just their family life, the Reformation actually made things harder for them.
Unfortunately, yeah. The book quotes Arthur Glasser, and he points out that when the convents were dissolved, women kind of lost their main way to officially serve in the church outside their homes, so all the support and opportunities they had basically vanished.
And so as the Protestant missionary movement started picking up steam later on, they ran into a problem.
Yeah.
Male missionaries often couldn't connect with women in other cultures because of cultural barriers.
Right.
So that's where missionary wives came in. The book really highlights how these women had to do so much. It was a lot. They were taking care of their homes and raising kids in these brand new and often really difficult places, all while they were creating outreach programs specifically for the local women and girls.
And then things started opening up more for single women, which is really interesting. At first, they were mostly doing childcare or, helping missionary families, but little by little, new opportunities emerged.
I remember reading about Cynthia Farrar in India. And Elizabeth Agnew in Ceylon, who started supervising women's schools.
Exactly. And then there was all the work going on inside zananas and harems,
Right.
often through medical work, which is amazing. Just to be clear, for those who don't know, zananas and harems were separate living spaces just for women. So these missionaries were building relationships and sharing their faith in places that men could never even go.
And yet the book points out that they didn't always get the credit they deserved.
No, they really didn't. But things started to change thanks to leaders like D.L. Moody, A.B. Simpson, and A.J. Gordon. They really pushed for people to recognize women's gifts and for women to be involved in public ministry. And then you have people like J. Hudson Taylor, the founder of the China Inland Mission, and Frederick Franson from Team. They were instrumental in recruiting and sending out both single and married women to do all kinds of missionary work. I mean, we're talking teaching the whole 9 yards.
I read that in 1888, Hudson Taylor's mission specifically recruited 32 single women to go out.
Wow. That's a huge shift in thinking.
Right. It really shows how much people were starting to see what women could do on the mission field.
Yeah. And the book mentions Jane Hunter's research, which found that most of these women weren't motivated by personal gain. They were driven by their faith and a deep desire to serve God. And the reports they sent back home, those were so powerful, and they inspired countless other women back home to get involved too.
And that inspiration led to action. People like Annie Armstrong and Helen Barrett Montgomery, they really dedicated their lives to getting American Christians to support missions. Whether it was donating money, volunteering their time organizing, or praying, they worked tirelessly.
And then you have this unexpected catalyst for change the Civil War. With so many men lost, the women back home had to step up and take on more responsibilities in all parts of society, businesses, banking, farms, even schools.
And that experience and leadership back home ended up pushing them into even bigger roles within the mission movement. I mean, with more women being financially independent and learning organizational skills, the whole landscape was changing.
And it's fascinating how women responded when some denominational boards were still hesitant to send them out as missionaries.
What'd they do?
They just started their own missionary boards. I mean, the Women's Union Missionary Society was a prime example. It was a total game changer, and it showed just how committed and driven they were.
And the book says that these women's boards were really good at raising money. Like, they often brought in more than the regular denominational structures.
Oh, yeah. They were incredibly effective at raising awareness and support back home. I mean, they even started women's colleges specifically to train women for missionary work, giving them all the skills they needed to succeed. And then you have the local churches. There were over 100,000 women's missionary societies meeting in those churches, which created this massive network of support, prayer, and financial backing for missions.
By the year 1900, the numbers are mind-blowing. Over 40 denominational women's societies and more than 3 million women actively supporting hospitals, schools, female evangelists, and single women missionaries all over the world.
And think about this. By the early 20th century, it was the largest women's movement in America.
Wow.
And women actually outnumbered men on the mission field by more than 2 to 1.
That's incredible.
It really shows you how much energy, dedication, and organizational talent these women had. But the book also points out something kind of troubling. In the 1920s and 30s, these successful women's boards were absorbed by the bigger denominational boards. And that led to women losing some of their leadership in the work they had started and supported for so long. You can't help but wonder what impact that had in the long run and if some unique perspectives and ways of doing things were lost because of it.
Yeah, it makes you think about how organizations work and how important it is to have diverse leadership, especially in mission work.
Absolutely. But even with those changes, one thing remains clear. The book highlights that throughout history, women have consistently made up and still make up about 2/3 of all missionaries around the world.
That's a huge number. And it really challenges our assumptions about who's been leading this global movement. I mean, even mission executives have said that women are often more willing to take on the really tough and dangerous assignments.
Right.
And David Youngie Cho even noticed that women tend to persevere more in tough situations.
Right. It's amazing. And there are so many modern examples that prove this is still true today. Take that single Western woman in sub-Saharan Africa, for instance. She's training imams in the gospel. We're talking about a nomadic Muslim group. And the book says that because she's a woman, she's seen as less threatening in their culture. So it's easier for her to build relationships, and they accept her like a loving older sister.
I read that there were even dreams and visions confirming her teaching.
Exactly. And that's led to people converting and then training others in the community. It's a powerful example of how women can bridge cultural divides and share their faith in unexpected ways.
Right. There's also that story from the missionary in Southeast Asia who said that some of their best evangelists are women,
Oh, yeah.
including lots of single women who are thriving even though they're working in a really tough and often chauvinistic Islamic environment.
It really shows that real Christianity isn't about chauvinism. It offers a fulfilling life for both men and women.
It seems like women often take a more holistic approach to mission work. They're really good at balancing evangelism with meeting practical needs in the communities they serve.
Yeah, that's a great observation. They have this deep care for women and children, so they tend to focus on things like education, medical care, and fighting against harmful practices like foot-binding child marriage and even female infanticide.
And this focus on taking care of people's needs, it actually helped them work together with people from different denominations.
Right.
The book says that women were really important in starting various ecumenical mission organizations. They were able to cooperate across different Christian traditions.
And we can't forget about the specialized areas of mission work. Wycliffe Bible Translators has found that teams of single women are often really successful at completing these huge and complex Bible translation projects.
And let's not forget the women who pioneered things like mission aviation. We're talking about Elizabeth Green, who co-founded Mission Aviation Fellowship.
Yes. And Joy Ritterhoff, who started Gospel Recordings, and Ruth Siemens, who created Global Opportunities. It's incredible to see all the different ministries that women have started and are still involved in today.
So much variety. It's really inspiring.
It really is. All this history and all the amazing work they're still doing makes us want to remember and celebrate these women. The book lists some amazing individuals who have really left their mark. People like Mary Slessor, Ann Judson, Amy Carmichael, Elizabeth Elliot. And of course, there are countless other women, both named and unnamed, who have served faithfully in some of the most difficult places on earth.
It's truly incredible when you think about all the challenges they faced and how many lives they've touched. And as the book points out, women in many parts of the world today have more freedom and opportunities than ever before. We're talking about business leadership, education, you name it. But with those freedoms comes a huge responsibility.
That's a really important point. And it leads to a question for you, our listener. Considering all this inspiring history and the opportunities we have today, how can women use their unique skills, their passion, and their influence to serve God in the world?
It's a challenge worth thinking about. I mean, women have so much potential to use their talents and their dedication and carry on that same pioneer spirit that we've seen throughout history. And the work ahead of reaching everyone with the gospel is still so big. We need everyone to participate, to use their gifts, and to be passionate about this mission, both men and women.
As we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that women have been a huge part of the story of Christian missions.
Their contribution has been so significant and so multifaceted, and honestly, it often goes way beyond what people realize.
For sure.
I think understanding this history isn't just about looking back. It gives us incredible insights into what leadership really is, how powerful dedication can be, and how people can overcome anything when they have a calling.
So our final thought for you today is this. Think about all these amazing women and the opportunities we have today. What unique contribution are you called to make in your own life? I mean, what can you do in your own little corner of the world inspired by the dedication, courage, and the incredible lives of these women? It's definitely something to think about.
That's so good. Thanks for being here. This was a great conversation. I think our listeners are going to be thinking about this for a long time.
Me too. It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.